She now joins us here on Philadelphia City Council Live as our councilperson of the week. I'm going to ask you, Councilwoman Gym, the same thing I asked the council president. Your reaction to the resignation of the two members of the SRC, and what do you hope to see the future of the SRC? Would you like to see it remain? Would you like to see it go back to local control? Your reaction?
Yeah, I think we've been pretty vocal about this issue, so I think that the stepping down of Feather Houston and Marge Neff is a time and a reminder for a fresh start to an entity that's long past its due. So we've been taken over by the state since 2001. In between, we've had all manner of issues around access to school resources. It certainly hasn't improved that. It hasn't stabilized staffing. It hasn't, necessarily improved the way that people are engaging with their schools right now. And the SRC itself has come under a lot of criticism for a tremendous lack of transparency and a sense that there's not really a whole lot of public accountability. This SRC in particular has been troubling because they've been singularly responsible for the stalemate around the Philadelphia teachers contract that has kept us with enormous staggering abuses around teacher vacancies, like kids who are getting daily substitutes, classes that can't be taught, curriculum mandates that aren't being met. That's a very, very serious issue. And we've also got a lot of concerns around ethics and potential conflicts of interest with some of the existing commissioners. So, two people are stepping down. I think it's important for three people to step down and make way. None of them have been appointed by the current mayor or governor.
Who would be the third person? The
third person, Sylvia Sims, is going to be stepping down as in January as a mayoral appointee.
So she's officially said that she's not, because my understanding is in the interim she would take over as the acting chair while
Sylvia Sims will not be acting chair of the SRC.
Who will be the acting chair?
Whomever the governor appoints, and I'm pretty sure he will not appoint Sylvia Sims.
Well, I thought the law said as the longest serving, but the governor has to appoint.
No, the governor appoints the chair of the SRC.
So Sylvia Sims will not be reappointed in January.
Well, I can't say. I mean, that's up to the mayor.
Okay.
That is certainly up to the mayor to whoever he wants to appoint to the mayoral position. But she's not appointed by the current mayor. And, I think she can stay on if she wants for, another number of weeks. But I think to really have a fresh start to the SRC, you do need to see new faces and folks who aren't tied to the the mass school closings, the dramatic drop in resources, the failure to pay attention to charter school problems and concerns that we've just had a U.S. audit around. They've kind of overseen a struggling venture around Renaissance and turnaround that haven't gone as to what was promised, and they're incapable of resolving the situation with our teachers contract that is preventing us from staffing our schools appropriately. So it's an important time for people to step aside and recognize that it's time for a new approach towards the SRC.
What do you want to see? Do you want to see it go to local control again?
I think we should have what every other school district in Pennsylvania has, which is a locally elected school board. Now, I think that there's a way to make moves towards that. So I think the first thing would be to see this SRC step down and we see new appointments. And then I think it can move to a locally appointed school board. And then I think it moves into electoral. But it's, we've got to move towards what every single other school district has in this Commonwealth. And that is local representation and local accountability in a local election.
I have to ask you this question, knowing the law as it is. You can't be a member of the SRC if you're currently in an elected office. Mm-hmm. There are going to be people who say Helen Gym should be in the SRC. I'm going to get it right now. Helen Gym does not intend to resign as a council person to join the SRC.
No.
Okay, so we just wanted to get that out of the way. But you are urging Mayor Kenny to I just want to make sure, not retain Sylvia Sims in January?
No, I just think that Sylvia Sims should step down and allow the mayor to appoint whomever he wants to appoint. If he chose to reappoint her, I think that would be his prerogative. But I don't know what point it makes to stay on for a number of weeks. Just to stay on until, your term expires. I think it's clear that we're going to need a new approach towards the SRC, and she should make room. And if he chooses to appoint her, I think that would make a very good signal. But, I think more than likely we will need folks who are not associated with the flawed policies that we've seen in the past that have driven our schools, frankly, largely into the ground and have resulted in a tremendous lack of resources, and is the reason why I came into public office. I mean, if I ran for city council, it was clear all across the city, people wanted to see a major investment in schools. This was an SRC that didn't want to see that, and very often was a vehicle for mass dismantling of our schools.
We're speaking to Philadelphia City Councilwoman at Large Helen Gym. She's our councilperson of the week here on 900 AM WURD's Philadelphia City Council Live. I'm your host, Vincent Thompson. So help me figure out, because this is like a lot of shifting chairs now. If Sylvia Sims doesn't stay on, there are two other members of the School Reform Commission. There's Farrah Jimenez, who's scheduled to leave in January 2019, and Bill Green, former Councilman Bill Green, whose tenure is also scheduled to end 2019. Let's assume that Bill Green is not going to be selected the interim chairman because he was forced out by the governor for Marjorie Neff. Does that mean through the process of elimination that Farrah Jimenez will probably become the acting chair?
No. So just for clarity, the mayor will make an appointment of, the governor. So what's happening is that Feather Houston will step down effective October 14th, and then Marjorie Neff will step down effective November 3rd. And the mayor can replace Commissioner Neff by appointment. So it's not, there's no process. Commissioner Houston's appointment is a little bit more complicated because the governor can nominate her, but she has to be, the appointment has to be confirmed by the Pennsylvania Senate. And what we've seen, for example, was a couple of years ago where the Pennsylvania Senate delayed for, I think it was almost 7 months before they appointed somebody. And then we have a commission that's going to probably be at a four person, which means that in order to move anything, they'll have to be at a 3-1. And more than likely, they have ended up at a 2-2. So this will be a largely ineffective body until the governor makes an appointment, and then we see where this goes. But even if the body is, remains, it's just flawed. I mean, it's a flawed entity, and it's not like the people who are sitting there are themselves, causing or desiring personal harm or anything like that. But they are not accountable to the public. They overwhelmingly do not have they don't have any public obligations beyond just sitting and, ruling on these resolutions. They pulled away from the public spotlight as public scrutiny has increased. There have been increasing questions about ethics and conflict of interest. A commissioner who has granted, for example, is voting on resolutions which may involve, benefits to a relative, for example. So, those are all kinds of concerns that, mark a school reform commission it's gone past its time. 16 years of a state takeover. It's time for this to end. Like the parking authority, the school reform commission is an insulated, publicly unaccountable body. It needs to go back to local control.
That's what I wanted to switch. You thought ahead of me for the Philadelphia Parking Authority. I know you've been very angry and upset with Vince Finnerty and his now being forced out because of sexual harassment. Your feelings about Vince Finnerty, was it the right thing that the board did? And should the board go? Because even though Councilman Al Tautenberger apologized, his statement that it was kind of a puppy love kind of thing was pretty offensive. And do you think that there needs to be a shakeup at the parking authority, that the board needs to go?
Yeah, I don't think that the parking authority should be run by the state. I think it's a local entity. It belongs to the city of Philadelphia. It should be accountable to the citizens of Philadelphia. They themselves are a wholly unaccountable entity. The fact that Mr. Finnerty was forced out because of sexual harassment claims, not because they happened, but because they came to public light. And actually not even because they came to public light, but because it was clear that there was at least one other incident that hadn't been dealt with appropriately. So no, I don't think that it should end with just Mr. Fenergy stepping down. I really do think that the parking authority has traditionally had a lot of questions and concerns about its management of public dollars, that I think that its behaviors around how they handle sexual harassment are indicative of a problem around management in general, which also relates to financial management. That's why I was so strongly calling for a full performance audit of the parking authority, that it needed the oversight of the Auditor General, if not the Attorney General, and that we needed to make a big public cry. And I'm glad that our governor and that has called for that, and that our Auditor General is going to move forward on it.
Should every member of the Parking Authority Board of Directors sitting right now resign as a result of what
they should only resign if it returns back to local control. Otherwise, we're just going to shift. We're just going to shift personnel in. I want to see. I do want to see new faces on the parking authority, but I more importantly want to see a change in the governance structure.
Final question to you, Councilwoman. I do appreciate taking the time. I know we're trying to come back.
My bill.
I was going to get to it. That's the bill I'm getting to right now. 160713. It passed today. It's the Contractors Labor Management Relationship Bill. Talk a little bit about that, and what will it mean for a building service employee? I'm a maintenance person. What will it mean to me that I didn't have a week ago or 2 weeks ago?
So what it means is that we talk a lot about poverty in our city, and it's so hard to do something about. But this is a bill with thanks especially to my co-sponsors on the bill, Councilwoman Parker, Councilman Jones, Johnson, and Maria Quinones Sanchez, we're really pushing on how we actually legislate around poverty. And one of the ways that we can talk about this is to attach prevailing wage responsibilities to large entities that take public subsidy. And what we're doing is taking an existing bill that helps lift people up from the working poor to the working class. And it means that if our hospitals and our universities, our stadiums, our ports and our airport receive a public subsidy, then they have to allow all their workers, primarily their service workers, who are often at the bottom of the pay scale, to receive the prevailing wage.
Which is what, $12?
It varies across the market, but one example is a security guard at a university will make around $11 an hour and will now get bumped up to $13.48. And that is a big difference, and that can include benefits as well. It'll put money back into our tax coffers. It helps put money back circulating into our communities, and it overwhelmingly impacts women of color, the single female heads of household. These are critical moves for us to be able to elevate and lift up our city. It's not enough to talk about poverty. We actually have to do something about it. And if we can utilize the levers that we've got, which is primarily the giving away of public money and dollars, then I want to ensure that those who receive so much from our city, this incredible benefit of public subsidies, that they are themselves great actors in lifting up the quality of life of our residents.
This will go into effect how quickly
as
after
soon
the mayor
as the mayor signs it into law.
It goes into effect. Councilwoman Helen Gym, Councilwoman at Large Helen Gym, thank you very much for taking time to be our councilperson at large, our councilperson of the week today. Thank you very much.